This is the Soul Expansion Soundboard, an hour of honest conversations and straightforward advice on spiritual growth, limitless creation, and enlightened evolution, with two certified spiritual coaches and soulpreneurs who understand what it's like to navigate spiritual growth in an ever-changing world. You'll be part of illuminating discussions featuring spirituality, self-development, inner healing, manifesting, and expansive creation of the abundant life you truly deserve. Now, here are your hosts, Roz Kincaid and Julian Crosson-Hill.
Hello. Happy Friday. I'm one of your hosts, Julian Crosson-Hill, spiritual life and business coach and human design specialist. And with me is Roz.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm Roz Kincaid, intuitive soul healer and spiritual life coach. And I help women of color, pretty much all women, but mainly women of color, to get into that life of peacefulness and ease and just be authentically them and just enjoy life. So welcome to today's show, y'all.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Roz. So before we get into today's topic, Roz and I have an update on the show. This is going to be our final session of doing this. So it just, we've been doing this for 6 months, 8 months. It's been a while, right, Roz?
Yep,
So, and we're just not getting quite the interaction and the engagement that we would really have hoped with the show. And also, our businesses are very, very different and have moved in different directions. And we struggle coming up with topics that we can both talk about without going down our particular rabbit holes. And so it just made sense to stop with doing this and move on to doing other things in our lives. So
yes.
Thank you for everyone who has joined us and shared your comments and your questions. We've enjoyed the interaction, and come find us on our other channels.
Absolutely. It's been a trip. It's been fun, but let this be a lesson, you all, that if it ain't working, or if it's not working the way you want it to, like you get to go and do something else. Like, you don't have to keep hanging on when you don't need to. So there you go. You have permission to let go when you feel like it's time. And that's exactly what we're doing. And it's okay.
Letting it go.
And ain't nobody mad, tell you that much. Nobody's mad. And Julian and I are still gonna connect. So it's all good. This was fun for the time that we had it. So
it was fun. Roz and I get together and we have a good time and we enjoy doing this, but it just wasn't making business sense anymore. And so we're taking our own advice.
There you go. There you go.
So today's topic is say what you mean. And so a lot of times through growing up, most of us probably didn't learn how to communicate very well from our family. I don't know. I grew up in a family of yellers. So, everybody was yelling at each other and didn't really learn good communication skills about how to talk about what I'm feeling and what my needs are. And so today, Roz and I are going to really talk about that and about talking about saying what you mean and really getting to what matters the most to you in your communication. Roz, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, the last piece that you mentioned, and by the way, totally come from a family of yellers. We still yell, and I even have to work on myself to not yell. My Aquarius daughter, who mirrors to me all the time, "Mommy, why are you yelling at me?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm yelling," and I don't want to do that anymore. So, but I think the last piece that you said about knowing your values, in communication is going to be key. And growing up in very, influential, and very conditioned families, we are taught our values to us. And it isn't until we grow into adults and even before that, really, that we start to notice, like, these values, one, don't work for me. They're not getting me the results that I'm looking for. and they just don't feel aligned to me. Like something is going to feel off, and it's like I don't believe that anymore. That's not valuable to me. Like it's not valuable. Like it's not a value of mine to like do large parties. I have everybody at my house, and it's not valuable to me to, be a housewife. And when I say housewife, I mean the type of woman that my grandmother was to my grandfather, where she went to work and she came home and cooked the full Sunday dinner on a Monday. Like I'm not doing that. And so being able to communicate, or actually not even before you communicate your values, you have to know what your values are and be able to communicate that, even if you are in partnerships or friendships. Like set the expectations for people and not be afraid to let somebody know where you stand and what actually works for you. So values, know those. That's key.
Yeah, absolutely. Values are so important. And I like to really view my spiritual values as non-negotiables, right? They're not
Hmm.
values that I hold, they're non-negotiables. You either respect my values or we're through. Um, so for me, what really changed the way I communicate and something that I'm still working on a lot is I had a good friend who was also a coach who taught me about nonviolent communication. And nonviolent communication comes from sort of the Buddhist tradition, but what's really important about it is that it is very focused on what your feelings are and what your needs are. Because when we feel a certain way, when we feel rejected, when we feel upset, it's often because there's some need that hasn't been met for us. And so nonviolent communication is really about how do we structure our communication in a way that communicates our feelings and our needs without blame. Because we get in these conversations, and a lot of the reason that our communications go off the rails is that we start in with blaming the other person. So then the other person is defensive because they feel that we've gone on the offensive and we aren't communicating well. And like really think about that. Like what is it like to communicate without blame? Because most of us say, well, you made me feel a certain way. Well, did they? Because you choose your feelings. You had an unmet need and you felt a certain way, but you don't have to feel that way. You can change what you're feeling. And we've talked about that with the somatics around that of hold your body a different way, smile, you'll change how you feel. And so we can talk about what we're feeling, but we need to take ownership and responsibility for what we're feeling in the conversation. So we can say, I feel hurt, but the other person didn't make you feel hurt. Like maybe they did something that triggered that feeling in you, but still you chose to be hurt by it. And so you can say, I feel hurt and I need for you to, whatever the need is, I need to feel accepted.
Hmm.
And then you can then that opens the communication. The other person understands where you're coming from. They can communicate what they're feeling and what their needs are, and then you can negotiate how you get your needs met. And it's a much more holistic and healthy way to communicate with one another.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the point that you made about communicating your feelings, I want to take one step back before that and kind of touch on you being able to communicate with yourself what you're feeling before you can communicate that with anybody else.
Yeah.
And that is going to require you to stop moving so fast and stop your brain from going all the way to a conclusion. My daddy used to say stop jumping to conclusions about things and pause and
Yeah.
start to really be with yourself. Get somewhere silent, go on a nature walk, whatever the case may be, get in the shower, have some quiet time and some solitude, and just understand what is it I'm feeling, because it may not be yes, it is hurt under the surface, so it may not be your initial reaction of anger or rage or disappointment or whatever the case may be. We have to start getting in the habit of going under the surface to really understand what are we feeling, and not rush ourselves to have a conversation about things when we aren't yet at a place where we can fully understand what's going on within me. Why am I triggered? Why am I choosing to feel this way before we go and communicate that to somebody else? Because
Yeah.
clarity can serve us well when we just slow down, allow ourselves to feel like you're not gonna die for feeling your feelings. Okay, like take some time to really understand what's happening with you, and the only way to do that is for you to spend some time with yourself and really understand who you are and how you operate, and how you're made, and what conditioning has been instilled in you to be able to let somebody else know this is what's going on with me. Here's what my needs are. And maybe you don't even know what your needs are to be able to articulate what that is. And I don't and
Yeah.
I think that part of it in our society is that our first um our first reaction is to go and blame somebody else for how they made us feel. And I
Yeah.
love what you said, Julian, about choice. We do have a choice in how we feel. You don't have to like you have a million other ways that you can feel about a certain situation. It doesn't always have to be I'm pissed off, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm depressed. You don't have to feel that way. And I get, yeah, so y'all don't come over here coming for me. And I get that biochemically, some people are wired that way where they are have an aversion or more susceptible to, sadness and depression and anxiety. Even then, slow it down, get
Yeah.
calm, check in with yourself, and then be able to verbalize that.
Yeah, I think I love what you said about slowing down because I think that's really important. Just because something happens and you're feeling a certain way in the moment, you do not have to have that conversation now. And even if you're in a conversation and you start to feel things coming up and you feel like you can't stay connected and present in that conversation in a way that's not blaming or triggering, then it's okay to take a time out to say, I'm feeling a little triggered. I'm feeling a little anxious. I need to step back for a minute. And can we continue this conversation in 15 minutes? Like, that's totally fine. I noticed in the comments, Vicky says that other people say, I hurt my feelings. And sometimes redirecting that can be a really good way when people come at you with blame. So focus on the needs. I have these boundaries, and it's my need to feel a certain way or to have a certain thing. What is the need? Ask them what need they have that your boundaries are not fulfilling, and then how do you find a solution to that? So there's a couple of ways that we can approach communication, and I always see communication as a three-step process. There's presence, curiosity, and then focus on what matters.
Hmm.
So the first is being present. We have to be mindful. Too many of us are trying to talk to somebody and they're looking at their phone, they're watching TV, they're reading something. They're not present with the conversation, and you can't have understanding without presence first. So you have to be present. You have to be listening to each other and being fully present with the conversation. And then secondly, there's got to be curiosity. You've got to want to understand the other person's feelings and needs, and be curious and willing to ask questions about what their experience is and what is happening for them, so that you can arrive at an understanding of what the unmet needs are on both sides and come to some sort of solution. And then finally, focus on what matters, which isn't blame. It isn't all the other stuff that we drag in. It's not bringing the past in. Well, 3 months ago you said this. Like, focus on what's present and real right now and in the moment, and focusing on what matters in the moment, which is, I have this unmet need and I feel a certain way, and I want to find a way to have my need met. Now, you're not always going to be able to find a way to have that need met, and that's okay too. Sometimes, and it's okay to grieve that, to be like, this person is unable to meet my needs and I'm unable to meet their needs. And maybe that means that relationship doesn't work anymore, or maybe you just find another way to meet that need, or you grieve the fact that that need can't be met and you move on, but you at least have an understanding of each other and where you are.
Yeah, I love that, and the part that you mentioned about being present, because a lot of times um when we're trying to have hard conversations, we are not present and we're thinking about the next thing or the rebuttal to what
Yeah.
somebody else is saying, instead of really actively listening and not letting that chatter or you running that script that's in your mind take over, or get in the way of you hearing someone else's side. And I also too think, along with those three things, of being present, having curiosity, and focusing on what matters, I also think that it would serve us better if we were to extend some grace to the other person and not expect the other person to communicate the way we do.
Yeah.
Prime example, my husband, he will admit he does not like confrontation, and I like to verbally process, and I like for people to be able to interject and communicate and talk things out, and he's just not like that. And there was a time in our relationship where I would get so incensed with him, and for him not being, as verbal and outwardly spoken as me about how he feels, whereas he needs time to process what's going on in him, and he needs to find his words. And if we don't be curious, there's the curiosity, be curious about how people are comfortable communicating and how they communicate best, we will drive a wedge between us and the people that we care about and the relationships that we care about, if we try to push people into our way of being, into our way of communicating, and we'll never get to any resolve, if there's a resolve to be gotten to. And it's okay to agree to disagree. Everybody doesn't have to be on
Yeah.
your same page, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Let it be okay.
absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely okay. So I want to give some tools. So for people who are just sort of like really tuning into this and thinking about how do I communicate more effectively. And there's a really simple tool called conscious dialogue. And it's really a powerful way to communicate. And I use this when I teach workshops and I'm talking to people in my workshops sometimes. So it's a four-step process. First of all, there's an observation. I noticed this morning you seemed really out of sorts. What's going on with you? You make an observation. You're not attaching blame or judgment to it. You're just making an observation. I noticed this. And then you open with some curiosity. What's that about? What's going on with you? What happened this morning? Those kinds of things. And then you can follow up with, stating your feeling about it. Like, I feel this. Again, not blaming, just stating it. This is what I'm feeling in this moment. And then state your need. I need, what is it that you need? And then make a request, because we often miss that part. We forget to ask about what we want. We forget to ask someone to meet our unmet need for us. And so the final part then is making that request and being okay if the person says no, because that's always an option too, is that they're going to say no to your request. And then you decide how you're going to move forward from there, whether there's another solution or whether that person just can't meet that need for you.
Yeah, and understanding that, um oh, what was I gonna say? Understanding that it doesn't say anything about you and your value, your worth. If somebody can't meet your need, or if somebody doesn't want to talk about it, or they're not ready to talk about it. Like, use myself as an example. I go through this process myself. I observe, I can feel people's energy. I know when something's not right. And I'm asking what's going on. And when the person tells me, "N- I'm good, nothing, everything's fine," I'm like, no, 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 no. There's a fine line between challenging somebody about them wanting to talk and how they feel, and kind of just giving space for them to work through it, right? And so what I'm working on personally is not letting myself go into these mental gymnastics and letting this person not wanting to talk about it right now, or wanting to mask, not say anything about me and what I might have done wrong or what I didn't do right, and I'm not good enough or I'm not doing enough, because I will go there easily. And I really have to catch myself. And I'm sure that there are other people out there that do this same thing. I know, because I've worked with plenty of clients that do this, where you start to make it about you when their energy is off, when they don't want to talk about it. It's not always about you. And so you have to stop
Yeah.
making yourself the villain and the victim in when you're communicating hard subjects or having hard conversations, or just wanting to normalize and neutralize the energy when you feel that it's off. So
Yeah.
that part.
Yeah, definitely. I also want to just sort of add that these tools aren't just for hard conversations. Like, we often say sort of meaningless things to people. I appreciate this. Well, what is it that you appreciate about it? And so you can do the same thing. You can say, thank you for doing, observe what it is that they did. Tell them how it made you feel. Tell them what need was met by their action. And that has so much more meaning when you tell people why you appreciate things that they did for you. Like, we can use these techniques even in positive conversations, and it just adds a whole more depth to it.
Yeah. I like that. Not just we got to get beyond the surface. And especially now with, and for those of you that follow astrology, especially now with Pluto moving into Aquarius, where transformation is happening amongst society, amongst our communities, amongst our tribes. There has to be that communication there that goes deeper under the surface, where you're grateful, you're thankful, but it just seems to be just right on the surface and not deep enough so that the person can really understand the impact that they have in your life. So, like, it's okay to get deep. You're going to need to get deep in order to, strengthen those bonds within your community. And so, let your conversations go beyond the surface and really, search yourself and think about the value that other people hold in your life, and what you can do to either strengthen that or maintain that. So definitely, let's be on the lookout for how we can strengthen community through meaningful conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Like, just focusing on what matters. It all comes back to you right there in the title. Say what you mean. Focus
Mhm.
on what matters and say what you mean about it.
Yeah, and one more thing that's coming up is that oftentimes we don't say what we mean because we've come from a family that yells. People have been reactionary towards us when
Yeah.
we do say our truth and we do speak how we feel and what's authentic to us. And y- you have to practice separating what's yours and what's the other person's, right? This is
Yes.
what we do as coaches, where so that we don't get entangled with our clients' emotions, get entangled with their life, and let them take ownership of that so that it doesn't drain us. And so even when somebody reacts negatively
Yeah.
to what we say, or even positively, you don't have to take ownership of that. You don't have to carry that and make that yours. That can be theirs. You've spoken your truth. And I think that focusing on speaking your truth, that matters more than anything when you want to go into a conversation with anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I think also our society teaches us not to talk about our needs.
Hmm.
Especially men struggle with this, right? Because, you don't want to be perceived as needy or vulnerable or any of these things. And we need to break that pattern and talk very frankly about what our needs are, because a lot of people running around there hurt, having all kinds of feelings, blaming everyone else for it, getting into the victim complex, and all they really need to do is speak up about the needs that weren't being met for them.
Just say something. That's
Yeah.
all you gotta do. Say something to somebody. I mean, go tell God in a prayer or something. Just write it down in a journal, but you need to get it out of you. Like that's
Yeah.
healthy, and you don't have to eat it or swallow it or let it manifest as an ulcer because you're not talking and you don't feel like you have the space to do so. You take up the space.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna give you permission to speak, especially as a grown, able adult who is able and capable of speaking up. I don't want to get too much into self advocacy, but you're gonna have to say something because one, nobody can read your mind. And if you
Yeah.
want the situation to be different and you want to collaborate and you want some cooperation, you have to say something. You have to. or else nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
Mm. All right. So, any final thoughts that you have, Julian, that you want to make before we start to tell the people how to connect with us after this?
No, I think I hit everything I wanted to say today. So go for it, Roz.
I think I said what I wanted to say too. So listen, y'all, if you like this type of content, these types of conversations, and you connect with my energy, and you're interested in working with me in any capacity, or even if you just want to see more content from me, first check out my YouTube page, Soul Healing with Roz, um, as well as my offerings on my website, www.rozkincaid.com, and connect with me through a reading. You can also join my email tribe, where I oftentimes spill all the tea about what's going on with me that might be able to relate to you. So, and check out my podcast on everywhere where you can hear podcasts. So, yeah, I look forward to working with some of you.
Awesome. So you can connect with me at my website, www.priestofenana.com. I'm a pretty prolific blogger. So if you like to read, I've got lots of stuff. I'm also pretty active on Instagram. So also my username on Instagram is Priest of Inanna. You can find little reels, clips from different things that I've done, just short little snippets of the kind of stuff we talk about here. And also, I have a podcast, Answer Your Unique Calling, and I've been going for almost 2 years now. So there's lots of episodes, and I cover all the things that we talk about here, as well as human design, spiritual business. It's all there.
Awesome. You guys make sure you check those out. And so, listen, as Julian mentioned, this is our last soundboard. Me personally, I have enjoyed the engagement that we have had here. I'm thankful that we have had the opportunity and got the inspiration to do this together. It's opened up some inspiration for me personally of some things that I want to create and talk more about in my own work. And I just appreciate people just being here and being able to connect with the community in such a different way. And I'm thankful for technology, because this is great. Being able to go live
Yeah.
and see people's comments and stuff and not be distracted like that's great for me. And so I hope that there's something that I or Julian has said that will help you all along your journey. And again, I'm just thankful for each and every opportunity to be able to share information and connect with both Julian and this community. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for watching, and I've had a great time. I always have fun talking with Roz. We inspire each other, so it's been great. And now I'm going to go create a bunch of new stuff from all this inspiration.
Yeah, definitely. All right, you guys, you all be well. Again, make sure you check out the links. If you're watching the replay, check the links in the description, and look forward to connecting with you. And until we meet again, be
Yeah.
well.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
This has been the Soul Expansion Soundboard. Join us live every other Friday.